And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. And we start your chance to win Kevin Miller's money. We've got the code words already, kicking it off for your chance to win up to $5,000. Today's first code word is couch. That's couch. Don't forget to listen at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then at 3 o'clock during the Sean Hannity Show for your code words. The more code words you get, the more chance you have to win up to $5,000. Could be yours just by winning Kevin Miller's cash on KIDO Talk Radio. We've got a lot to do before we get to our friend Dan Gaynor. Dan, he's in the green room standing by, getting ready for the Media Research Center. And since it is the Albertsons Boise Open Week, and I don't know if we can do it every week, but just our way of thanking you on Thursdays throughout the fall here on KIDO Talk Radio's Kevin Miller Show, we have 4 passes for the Albertsons Boise Open. So be caller number 5. We're going to make it very easy for you. Caller number 5 when you hear a Cheap Trick song, because Cheap Trick is going to be here on Friday, and you can go see Cheap Trick. We've got weekly passes. A friendly family 4-pack could be yours when you're caller number 5 when you hear Cheap Trick. Surrender, Dream Police, all sorts of things. Let's get to Dan Gaynor now on 107.5 FM, 580 AM from the Media Research Center. Dan, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, and I'm envious. I have indeed seen Cheap Trick in concert. They were excellent. I saw them with my brother, the West Coast Gaynors. It was very good, and yes, Surrender is one of my all-time favorite songs. So, people who don't want those tickets, they're foolish. That's all I can say.
I will tell you, it's going to be a great show, and so Surrender, that would be your favorite Cheap Trick song?
It's actually one of my favorite songs in general. Yes.
See, there's a couple songs. Look. Let's get. I'm going to get sidebar here, and you're going to start calling me Cory Booker in a minute. So anyway,
okay. I am Spartacus. We can now go back into '90s movies because when Cory Booker did his crazy thing, all I could think about was the movie Clueless.
Right.
Because the movie Spartacus crops up in the movie Clueless, and the lead character Cher in that movie refers to the movie as Sporadicus. And that's all I could think of. In fact, I even created a little video or a little a picture meme of Cory Booker and dropped in the text, "I am Sporadicus," and posted it. I just, what can I say?
Well, let's start with Judge Kavanaugh, because this goes back to the Clarence Thomas hearings that appear to be civil compared to this. The organized chaos, the Democrats trying to obstruct even when they didn't have a chance. Can't we all just behave as adults?
Why should we? You behave as adults when you think you can get away with behaving as adults. But if behaving as adults doesn't get what you want, then you go back to behaving like children. What the left is trying to accomplish here is they're trying to bork another Supreme Court nominee, and they're okay with that. In fact, one of the Washington Post columnists was writing not too long ago, basically saying it was okay that they borked Bork, and she was urging them to bork Kavanaugh. Well, she was a so-called journalist when she was supporting that. She was actually covering the case, covering the hearings for Bork. So now she's a columnist, and she hasn't changed her tune. This is what you get with the media. Look, I am sick of watching the game that the media play and that the left plays. Everything is catastrophic if it's got an R after its name. And we're gonna bring in a Supreme Court justice. She will support everything you've ever hated in your life. We're gonna pretend that she's relatively normal, even though she's liberal. She'll be libertarian. She'll defend your free speech rights and all this other stuff. That was how they pushed Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I remember that one very well. Of course, they lied. She's a doctrinaire liberal, has been liberal on every single issue. She believes that we should actually embrace foreign government laws to form our laws. No. So then but she got 95, I think it was, votes in the Senate. Where we are now is different. The left doesn't want to vote for anybody, doesn't want to approve anybody, doesn't want to approve anything. So what the press doesn't want to admit is that they're not just being obstructionists, but they're being anti everything. And they won't make fun of them for that because the press agrees with the strategy. The press supports the strategy. The press is leading the strategy.
Dan Gaynor joining us, Media Research Center, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Yeah, but you go back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Kagan and Meyer. Why were the Republicans afraid to try and stop these things when they got so many more votes than Judge Kavanaugh will get?
Well, they weren't so much afraid. They basically, the theory has always been that a Republican president gets to name conservative or more, justices who might be more in tune with conservative or Republican worldview, and Democrats the same. And so everybody has always sort of acknowledged that process until Democrats stopped acknowledging it. And they stopped acknowledging it with Justice Bork, and look what they did to Justice Thomas. We have reached a point in history, despite all the lies of the media, it's not Republicans or conservatives who are stopping people by and large. They're doing it, when they do it, they're doing it in response to liberals doing it. The Merrick Garland, yes, that was unusual. Okay, well, let's go back. Let's look at the history here. Democrats changed the rules for judges when you had a Democrat president. So the fallout from that is Republicans do the same. So it's a downward spiral that leads to bad places where essentially, unless you control the Senate, if you're the president, unless you control the Senate, you're probably never getting a major nominee for Supreme Court through ever again.
Let's talk a little bit about the midterms and how they've been positioned. Kind of reminds me of the presidential election in 2016. It's the end of the world for the Republicans. That seems fair.
Well, the problem the Republicans have is some of this is self-inflicted. Republicans have been running against Trump during the 2016 election. Now they're running from Trump that he won. Trump's policies are popular. Don't forget what the media tells you. Trump's policies, standing up to illegal immigration is a popular decision. Don't let the media pretend it's not. The reason why we have not had an overall immigration fix isn't that government can't agree. It's that the American public didn't want to do what people in Washington wanted to do. Remember, that happened during George W. Bush's time. And you had hundreds of thousands of illegals marching in our streets carrying Mexican flags. And the American public, Republicans and Democrats, said, "The hell with that," and so didn't get changed. Now, of course, it's been years, and the media push on this, and the people in Washington push on this, and this is what they want. Neither party wants to offend illegal immigrants. Because, eventually they'll vote. Yes, eventually They will vote for Democrats. By every measure, they vote about 7-3, 8-2, whatever, Democrats and Republicans for former Hispanics in general. And you see that play out in all sorts of ways. We saw the big news this week that Google had promoted, getting Hispanics to vote in certain key states in an attempt to fix the presidential election. Now, they rebound on them because more Hispanics voted for Trump than they thought, and Trump ended up winning.
Well, back to that issue, we always talk about, we had the laying to rest of John McCain, but it was McCain and President Bush that colluded to do that legalization of the illegals, and the Republican base, the conservative base, rose up and stopped it. And for that, you had people like John McCain condemning him. And look, John McCain, a war hero, very honorable man, but he was not a friend to conservatives. He was very friendly to the libs.
Well, and he was also very friendly to the press. And that was it in a nutshell. The press liked him because he fit a mold of classic media popular so-called Republicans. They said, here's here's a Republican we'd probably vote for. Until, of course, push comes to shove, and then they don't vote for it. Remember, going back to 2008 campaign, almost all the major media outlets endorsed Barack Obama. 3 newspapers endorsed John McCain. Obama kicked reporters from those newspapers off his campaign plane. No talk about this during the McCain funeral time. No talk about this when Obama is supposed to speak at the funeral. Look, it's Weasel elite Washington working with Weasel elite Washington, trying to frustrate what ordinary voters want. And if you want a great example of this, watch the React video of Google that came out at Breitbart. Watch that hour-long video. This is a video that was taken of a major Google meeting held the day after the presidential election. And the major freak out and then discussion of plans of ways to prevent America and other countries too from voting the way we want in the future is terrifying. But it's completely the liberal worldview, and you can find it in almost any newsroom in the country.
Dan Gaynor joining us, Media Research Center. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Of course, that's not really covered, how much they cheer for the other side. And, you know, I was in Washington last week. I won't say the name of the station, but there was a conservative on, and they posted it on Facebook. And this guy's a best-selling author. They were immediately flagged for having a picture of this guy on for offensive content. And it's not like he's a crazy kook either.
What the left has gotten very good at is targeting conservative speech on these social media platforms, and then the way the platforms are set up. If you report on speech, then speech, if it violates certain things, they will quickly take it down, and then you can appeal it. But by that time, I was posting a notification of an event I'm going to be at, or I'm going to posting this or that. But at that time, it's old by the time that you win the appeal. So the appeals process is bad. The people who handle the appeals process in these organizations is also bad because they are by and large liberal. And so yeah, we have some very serious problems, particularly with Google. Did Google try to fix the 2016 election? I'm no lawyer. I'm certainly not an election law expert. But my boss has called for Congress to hold hearings and called for all the different appropriate pieces of our government to go digging into Google to find out just what the heck they're doing.
Dan Gaynor joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Finally, what do you make of the anonymous op-ed and Bob Woodward's return?
Well, I mean, the anonymous op-ed, even Woodward is critical of it. He basically says that it didn't meet his standards for whether they should have run it or not, because he said it was poorly sourced. No, they shouldn't have run it. And I mean, picture for a second the reverse. If you had something under the Obama administration, somebody had written that, the press would have skewered whatever outlet posted it, and then they would have spent weeks trying to figure out who wrote it. Instead, here, the real reason why not to run it is it didn't add anything to the discussion. Nothing in that op-ed you can't find in 20 or 30 other New York Times op-eds and Washington Post op-eds and BuzzFeed op-eds. I mean, this is media groupthink. Why bother to damage your credibility? Oh, well, you don't want to do that.
Dan Gaynor, you're always credible, even to the West Coast Gaynors as well as the East Coast Gaynors.
Well, I'm hoping against hope that some of the West Coast Gaynors might be coming east for Thanksgiving. So I already kidnapped one and her boyfriend. I'm hoping for more.
Well, that's a long trip out there,
Well, they free food, man.
Thank you, Dan. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
All right. Remember, it is Win Kevin Miller's Money. Listen at 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. for your chance to win. Get the cash codes where you can win up to $5,000, and during the Sean Hannity Show at 3 o'clock. And coming up today, within moments, mere moments, when you hear Cheap Trick Caller 5, you're going to win 4 weekly passes to the Albertsons Boise Open to see Cheap Trick. All that and more next. Stay with us. Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We continue on here before we get to traffic and weather together. People are very worried about the hurricane. Let's get the very latest.
The eye is going south of us. We're not going to get the Joe Frazier right hook. So it's not going to be as bad as it is. It's going to be bad, but we'd rather be home than take a week and a half to get home.
Flooding is one of our main concerns. We are at sea level, and we are going to get potentially up to 30 inches or more of rain, and that is a major concern of ours.
Residents in the path of these devastating storms should comply with all evacuation orders and other emergency instructions. Protection of life is the absolute highest priority.
The forecast tells us that Florence's storm surge will drown many homes. Expert modeling here at North Carolina Emergency Management shows that storm surge alone is likely to flood tens of thousands of structures.
If you are in one of those evacuation zones in these counties, you need to leave now.
There we have it. You know, I've become addicted to watching these things on the TV. And I'm thinking to myself, who in their right mind would be there covering this stuff? And do we really need to see it now? The ratings for the Weather Channel go up incredibly. People love this stuff, but you think to yourself, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, what person in their right mind would do this? And I have to tell you that in the old days, I've covered hurricanes, I've covered tornadoes, I've done all those things. But do we really need to see this? But I guess we're going to. So people are fired up about the hurricane. Can you imagine living in the Carolinas? Can you imagine living in some of these places where all of a sudden you have to pack up everything? And I really worry about, and I'm a sucker for our four-legged furry friends and family members. Hopefully everybody has taken their pets. They're worried about the zoos. They're worried about everything else. Riding out the storm to all of a sudden just relocate everything. We're not just talking about home stuff, which is so very important, but businesses and public utilities and hospitals and everything else. You're talking about, what, a 9-foot storm surge? Whew. We'll talk a little bit more about that, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely on time.
This is Jim Duthie.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. And our first winner today, Tom in Boise, won the 4-pack to go see Cheap Trick and our friends at the Albertsons Boise Open. Keep it here for your chance to win. Coming up between now and 7 o'clock, all morning long, we've got weekly passes, we've got daily passes. We can't wait to give you the opportunity to go check out the Albertsons Boise Open and Cheap Trick. Coming up at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, I guess more on the hurricane stuff, but, what happens when a place of faith has lost credibility?
The head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Cardinal Daniel DiNardo, requested the audience for the Pope last month as details emerged about allegations of sexual misconduct against ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. Despite the claims about groping a teenage boy, McCarrick had been able to rise through the church ranks. The Pope and other church officials have been accused of covering for McCarrick. Now DiNardo wants to know what Pope Francis knew about McCarrick's behavior. For his part, the Pope's announced a summit for the presidents of bishops' conferences around the world to talk about protection of minors and vulnerable adults. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Coming up, the Pope is blaming Satan. That's right. The Pope is blaming Satan for these more abuses coming through, the allegations of abuse that have been, I guess, substantiated. And with all due respect to the Pope, and you don't have to be a Catholic to get this, blaming Satan is one thing, but letting these things go on and on and on is another. And I thought that the Catholic Church, like all organizations, should have learned their lesson when this happened the first time. Let's get into this because we pride ourselves on being a family-friendly, faith-based show. And we'll talk about Pope Francis and other organizations that should be doing more to protect people, right? That's coming up next with me, Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
And blessed to be a part of your day. We have a very special day for you today. Your chance to win passes to the Albertsons Boise Open, including your chance to see Cheap Trick on Friday night. Currently, we have some weekly passes we're giving away. Of course, the Albertsons Boise Open competition starts today, and we would love for you to see it. We've got weekly passes, a family-friendly 4-pack or a friendless 4-pack if you would like to go. All you have to do is be caller number, we'll go up to caller number 6. It's still a little early. Caller 6 at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Caller 6, you're going to win those family-friendly 4-packs. What do you have to do when you hear Cheap Trick? That's right, a Cheap Trick song. Then be caller number 6. Other news of the day, obviously, were our thoughts and prayers to our friends. No, don't call in yet, everybody. No, you've got to pay attention to detail. As my dad has always told me, Kevin, you got to have a plan. You got to pay attention to detail. So the plan is, when you hear Cheap Trick, be caller 6, not right now. Let's go to Evan Brown, who is monitoring the hurricane. Evan, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have Evan on from Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. So is this old hat for you?
Not really. I think every storm is quite different and poses its own challenges. So it's something that I've gotten practiced at doing so that I can do my job with as little interruption as possible. But no, this is going to be a very dangerous storm for the Eastern Carolina coast. We can expect to see a storm surge of 10 feet or so, or more in certain areas. We can expect upwards of 4 feet of rain, and of course, there's 110-mile-per-hour winds right now, and that helps take things down.
Well, this is we're hearing this is of historic proportions. Of course, you never really know until the hurricane makes landfall just how big it's going to be.
Well, it's right now about 500 miles across for its tropical storm force winds. It is quite big. It is quite strong. Even though it has been downgraded recently, it is still carrying all that kinetic energy. So it's going to be creating a huge storm surge. We've noticed that a number of people have evacuated, and we think that's a great idea.
Can you go over just how big this evacuation is throughout the region?
Well, you're talking about millions of people who had to get off barrier islands and get somewhere inland. So not only did they have to go out of those islands, they had to go somewhere to stay, whether they're able to find a hotel space or with relatives or whatever. And there's no real timeline for how long it'll take to get back in. Part of that will have to be assessed after the storm comes through. But then we have to, see how long it takes before it's safe and people can go back and take a look at what's been damaged, whether or not the homes are livable, and get back into them. But people's lives are going to be interrupted to the tune of weeks, if not months.
Well, the other thing is just the infrastructure, and it's amazing the amount of prep that's going in. I don't know if you've seen some of the workers and rescue folks and electrical workers coming in from all over the country already.
Oh, certainly, yeah. That's a pretty standard practice these days in advance of a major storm, is to using the mutual aid agreements between the states to pre-position people, who work on power lines and who do other kinds of things, so that they're ready to go after the storm is done.
Evan Brown joining us on Fox News Radio from KIDO Talk Radio. Evan, anything else just being on the ground there that you could share with us?
Not right now, just that there's going to be a curfew at 8 o'clock tonight, and that means, everyone really has to be locked away. And
finally, it just because you go to a hotel, the hotels might lose power, right?
Correct. That's a thing, especially if they don't have generators. They will lose their power and not recover. They'll be at the mercy of everyone else. So that's a reality in these things.
Evan, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Evan Brown joining us, Fox News Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So we're talking a little bit about the Pope, who says the devil made those people do it. Do you buy it? It's a very simple show here. we could go off into soliloquies. We could, try and explain the meaning of life, but the Pope says the devil made him do it. Now, we all know the devil is not a good person. That's why he's the devil. On the other hand, does that excuse the actions of the Catholic Church? Does that excuse the actions of people covering this up? And, it's a very personal discussion for all Christians, and it gives the good Catholics, the good Christians, the good evangelicals a bad name. Which is worse, the crime or the cover-up? Doug in Mountain Home, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Doug.
Morning, Kevin. Yeah, I grew up, my folks were Catholics, my grandparents were Catholics. I'm 62, so I grew up, went to catechism, all that stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't know where you're at with it, Kevin, but it was a freaking hoax, and it was this way when I was a kid. This kind of stuff's been going on in that thing forever and ever. And I'm a sinner, so I guess they need to wake up and see who's the one that forgives sins, and it ain't the one behind the black screen when you go in and talk to them, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, you're pretty strong today.
That can forgive sins. Huh?
You're pretty strong today. Well, not one man, it would be God, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And it ain't the guy behind the black screen. Now, I'd like to say something about the hurricane, too. When I was in the service in Guam, I went through, in the Pacific, they call them a typhoon, the same thing, Typhoon Pamela. And it lasted 3 days, 2 nights, 3 days. And they had winds that they clocked at over 200 miles an hour, and they had average winds was 110. And the devastation them things can do is unbelievable. But I was only 19, so I was drunk for 3 days. And just
is that how that's how you got through the typhoon, being drunk for 3 days?
Yep, just sat there and watched it. We were on the 3rd floor in the barracks. 3rd floor, mind you, and we had 6 inches of freaking salt water coming through our door underneath it.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah. So, yeah. And one other thing. Now, I was told this. I didn't hear it on the news. You might look it up on our great Google that's so freaking worthy. But years ago, one of my neighbors told me that we were talking about typhoons, and one went through in Thailand, was coming through, and the weatherman in Thailand, right there, local, whatever, told them all it was going to miss them. So nobody took any precautions. And it came through and wiped out the place and killed some people. They hung that poor sucker. So Larry Gebert and all you guys better start telling the truth about your weather. Quit freaking giving us false information. So I thought I'd just throw that in there.
Well,
there you go, Kevin.
All right. Doug, thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. I love that. He's smacking confession, what the Catholics do to confess their sins, and he's smacking Larry Gebert. Anyway, good morning. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Kevin Miller with you. It is a Thursday. We're giving away tickets to see Cheap Trick and the Albertsons Boise Open. Caller 6 when you hear Cheap Trick between now and 7 o'clock. You're going to win a family-friendly or friendless 4-pass, weekly 4 passes, and check that out so you can go multiple days. That is this hour only, and we're going to continue to do that as well. We are talking about faith and really what it comes down to, how personal it is for you. Are you a person of faith? I had a big meeting in Washington. It wasn't really a meeting. It was a dinner. And, the old days, and maybe it's just me, maybe it's you. Dinner used to be a big thing. You'd go out, and dinner would be your entertainment, right? Now it's maybe a bucket of chicken and maybe some tofu at home. However, sometimes you go out and you're talking to friends or people that you know, and somebody said to me, Kevin Miller, I find that the people of faith, usually that espouse their faith, are the biggest hypocrites around. And that hit home to me. And I said, well, I think when you love God, when you try to live a godly life, and you're a sinner, well, I totally get that. but there's a higher calling, a higher standard that you yourself have to hold yourself up to. And if you, say that faith means a lot to you, well, you can't be, cheating on somebody else's spouse, right? And I don't know where people find the time for the hypocrisy, but this brings us back to the Catholic Church, where the Pope says it's the devil that is attacking the church. And I believe that he's correct. However, it doesn't excuse the actions of these people that have preyed on kids, these pedophiles. It doesn't excuse the church in Pittsburgh, where I used to work. I know the bishop, David Zubig, who is handling this case right now, for covering it up, right? What more can you say about this? There was supposed to be a zero tolerance for this, and quite frankly, I know this is getting too inside Catholic. Let's bring back Pope Benedict. And, is Pope Francis a socialist? I don't know. Liberty Linda, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
I better watch out. I won't be welcome in my church anymore.
I used to be a Catholic. And every Wednesday night...
hold on. Everybody used to be a Catholic. We need to bring back people to the church. Everybody's left us.
Well, every Wednesday night I used to go into confession. And the priest would always say to me, "Oh, Linda, you have nothing to confess. What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, just go and cover whatever, And then he used to, because I know they're not supposed to know who's on the other side of the screen, but, they know everybody's voices. And so then I'd go to the altar and say, and I think you have 109 beads. And you just say your Hail Marys, But one thing, well, of course, that part of the Catholic Church, we hope those type of things don't happen anymore. But one thing I want to say is, and in all churches, I belong to Lutheran Church, I've been Baptist, I've gone to almost all of them. There are good people. There were so many wonderful, good families in the Catholic Church, just the amazing, wonderful people in that church that go to it. And the amazing, wonderful people, when I went to the Baptist church, there are so many wonderful families that go to all of these churches. And, they love the Lord. And, I just wanted to comment on that this morning.
Well, what do you make of the Pope saying the devil's out to get him?
Well, I believe in the devil. I know there's a devil. And, but anyway, that part of what's going on in the Catholic Church is wrong. Of course, I believe in marriage. I think that a man and a woman, that I believe that marriage is the correct way to have children. And, but anyway, I wanted to comment on the good part of churches this morning. And because I've known wonderful families in every church I've ever gone to.
Well, I feel bad for the people that love their faith, regardless of what it is, and have to go through this, and people make their petty jokes and everything else. I feel sorry for them.
Well, and we anyone in any church, whatever, the children, we have to protect our children. And so that part of the Catholic Church and what's gone on, we need to pray that those types of things will never happen again. Our children are the most precious things on this earth, and we need to protect them. So anyway, basically that's, I want to say the good about in churches and in the Catholic Church as well, because I've known some absolutely wonderful families that are Catholics. They're good people. And but for the other part that's coming out today that we're talking about, we need to pray for the children and pray that that never happens again. And so basically, and for Maxine Waters, I don't know what planet she's from. Anyway, so thank you that we can call in and talk about the issues of today and listen to all your callers, Kevin.
Well, thank you for calling, Liberty Linda. You take care.
Okay, you as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.
This after a grand jury investigation in Pennsylvania found more than 1,000 cases and subsequent investigations in various states. Father Gerald Murray, Holy Family Church in New York City.
I'm glad he's doing it because the whole church needs to look at how we're handling cases of sexual abuse and abuse of authority by bishops.
The Pope has another meeting Thursday with the head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Cardinal Daniel DiNardo. He wants Pope Francis to authorize a full-fledged investigation into disgraced ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who resigned in July after allegations that he groped a teenager. DiNardo says questions about possible cover-ups by the Pope and others deserve answers. In New York, Lauren Green, Fox News.
Thank you, Lauren. Liberal Steve joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Sunshine.
Before I get into the devil, which is I've lived a life, devil backwards, D-E-V-I-L, I'd like to tell Max out there that the Urban Dictionary defines chronological liar as one who keeps their lies in order to remember their lies. The other day when he gave me a bad... Anyway, back to the devil. I believe in the devil. I believe the devil is Kevin Miller. And he's come to Idaho to destroy us. What do you think of that?
Well, we appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, you're only sick as your secrets. And this Catholic stuff, it's just because secrets. These bishops and cardinals kept all these secrets. And then Right to Life, he comes on and says, if they'd only get married. A pedophile's a pedophile. There's a lot of married pedophiles across the country and the world.
Liberal Steve, we appreciate the call. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time.